Welcome to Novibet.ie's Champion Cheltenham podcast, featuring the dual champion jockey Brian Hughes, David Jennings, Deputy Editor Ireland for the Racing Post, and Rob Hines, who's Digital Sports Editor for the Irish Mirror. Hello to you all.
Gordon.
Hi, Gordon.
Hey, is everyone?
Looking forward to this, and guys, we're actually going to start off with a little bit of what Cheltenham means to you all. For example, Brian, what's it like riding a winner there? I know you've ridden winners at the festival, being in the weighing room and the famous roar that starts the week before the Supreme.
Yeah, well, obviously it's what everyone looks forward to. I mean, you always want to try and identify, certainly midway through the season, horses that potentially could go to Cheltenham. But yeah, look, it's a great place to be. And when you're going there with live chances, it's hugely exciting. But yeah, it's and the weigh room, it can get quite intense, Gordon. Obviously the pressure's on. A lot of hard work and has gone into getting horses there in one piece. So yeah, it's sort of but it's a good pressure, if you like. And regarding the roar, I mean, I only have ridden in Supreme Novice once, but you do. It's like a wave coming to hit you at the start when the tape goes back. It is obviously Cheltenham's famous for the roar. But look, it's a great place to be, especially when you're winning. It's probably not such a great place to be when you're on a loser, but yeah, it's brilliant to ride a winner there.
And David, the build-up, the excitement, it reaches fever pitch, and us in the media, we can't wait for the first day of the festival every year.
Yeah, we're starting it since last July, I think, Gordon. It's been some build-up. You're knackered by the time you actually get to the Supreme. It's funny actually that Brian is on this, because Brian is part of my best ever Cheltenham Festival Day, would you believe? The 7-year anniversary this year, Brian, of Ballyalton in the Close Brothers. Yeah, it was one of them days where just a very rare occasion, actually, probably the only occasion where almost everything went right for me in the opening day that year. Manila Rocco won the National Hunt Chase, Annie Power won the Champion Hurdle, and on Tom's Portu won the Ultimate. And Brian, you finished off beautifully with Ballyalton in the Close Brothers. Thanks very much. I owe you a pint.
Pleasure.
Yeah. And Rob, memories of Cheltenham? Can you remember your first Cheltenham Festival memory? Can you remember backing a nice price Cheltenham winner?
In terms of sort of the first memory I can really remember was probably Moscow Flyer. I think that sort of era of sort of Moscow Flyer, Istabrack best mate, but I think Moscow always sort of stands out as he just kept coming back. You know, he'd fall and he'd come back the next year and he'd always come back and get the win. He's probably, in terms of going, I remember going my first festival was 2016, and just how vast of a place it is in terms of a sporting venue. It's so big. It's just, yeah, it's an incredible place.
And Brian, it's not all about glory, is it? We have some sort of dismal moments. For example, the year that Annie Power came down, the bookmakers were facing a massive payout. Sometimes there's the downside as well.
Well, it is, Gordon, but look, that's all part and parcel of sport, isn't it? Sometimes it goes well, and that day it was going very well until she tipped up at the last, and yeah, it went horribly wrong. I'd say probably to the relief of a few bookmakers, because they were going to have to pay out a huge sums of money. But that's just part and parcel of it, Gordon. And when you're dealing with animals, there's no such thing as a sure thing.
And as far as humour's concerned, Brian, from the jockeys at the festival, does anyone try and crack a smile, or is it all very intense?
It's not really that. I mean, yeah, it. I mean, the weigh room is a peculiar place, but I mean, I suppose early on in the festival, it does be intense, but yeah, I mean, because the weigh room's so big and there's all different sort of groups of different people. I mean, generally there's always a bit of banter and entertainment or something happening anyway behind closed doors.
And away from trying to find winners, David, and looking for good stories, anything that sort of makes you smile if you look back in festivals of yesteryear?
My first ever one, would you believe, was 98. Istabrack won his first Champion Hurdle. I don't know if you remember that year. It actually, the thing I remember most for is the longest Stewart's Inquiry or longest photo finish I can ever remember in livid memory. It was Hill Society and Sean Plev in the Arkle. And I think it went on for maybe 10 or 12 minutes, which is hard to believe at this day and age that a photo finish can go on for so long. But Sean Plev got the nod. But that was my first experience of it. I think I was 12 at the time. And then I think I've been going to about 20 or 21 Cheltenham festivals at this stage. So every year, it's just for us working in racing, and you know this, Gordon, like it's what you build up. That the whole season revolves around Cheltenham. Even if I'm working at Kilbeggan during the summer and something wins a maiden hurdle for Willie Mullins and Paul is riding it, you're kind of saying, is he just one for Galway or is he one for Cheltenham? Like, you're even talking about it that early. So it's just the climax of everything happens really at Cheltenham, Gordon.
I'll tell you one of my favourite laughs about Cheltenham. Brian will remember this many years ago. Hexham used to stage the first juvenile hurdle of the new season. And I remember, Brian, going back a few years, it was a horsey George Moores, and I was working at Hexham as was at the races then. And a horsey George Moores won the first juvenile hurdle of the season in June by about 20 lengths, and I got a text from a bookmaker who shall remain nameless and say, we're 33s for the Triumph Hurdle. I don't think it even ran in Cheltenham.
Bit premature, Gordon.
A bit premature. And Robert, finally, on our opening topic or two, do you look back with fondness on a lot of Cheltenhams, or do you grimace at a few?
Yeah, well, I remember the genius idea a few years ago of lumping on the double of Duvan and Altior, which obviously didn't go to plan. No, look, it's great. It's just, as even in the print game, it's sort of, it all builds around Cheltenham. It's the biggest selling sales week of the year for us. In terms of any of all the advertising and everything that goes with it, that it's so much of the year still evolves around Cheltenham for the newspapers,
Well, there we are. That's the first part. That's the first part of this podcast in the bag, so to speak. And now we move on where we'll focus, I would think, first of all on David and then Rob, and then we'll hear from Brian about an Irish banker, guys. Now, famous last words. Which Irish horse, in your opinion, won't get beat? So, and we want you to maybe go a bit with your heart as opposed to your head here, David.
Oh, God. Look, I think the Irish team is obviously as strong as it has been in the last couple of years, if not stronger. I do think Galopin Des Champs will win the Gold Cup. He's skimpy at the moment. You're talking about 5-4, 11-8, but he's everything you want in a Gold Cup course. They've changed the way he's been ridden this season with more restraint, and everything is more streamlined. He's neat and tidy over his fences. He's not exuberant. To me, he's just better than what he's running against in the Gold Cup. So he'd be the one for me. I think he's the one that, coming away from Cheltenham, I'd be disappointed if he runs his race and he's beaten. I'd be disappointed if Galopin Des Champs doesn't win, Gordon.
Galopin Des Champs then, disappointed if he doesn't win, according to David Jennings. Rob, what about you? Same question.
Yeah, Gordon, I actually have one here at a price that I really, really fancy. A Dream to Share that obviously won at the Dublin Racing Festival. The bumper horse, that's a bumper that has produced sort of winners in the past. Obviously, Faccoil Vega and Envoy Allen both won that race before going on to win at Cheltenham. Kilcrut won it. He was obviously second and was the favourite for the bumper that year too. And I think the fact that it beat a JP horse and JP has since bought it, I think that could be a big tip in itself. I think you're getting about 5-1 for that horse now. I think I'll be having a decent bet on that now on the day.
Brian, although you're based across in England now, what would you say would be an Irish banker?
Well, obviously you can look at all the Willie Mullins hot pots through the first day. You got Fast Al Vega and El Fabiolo, but a horse that Gellard de Menil in the National Hunt Chase, I just think even money about a horse that's been to the festival, jumped around in the Royal and Sun Alliance, not finishing very far behind a high senior. If you're thinking he's a Gold Cup horse, this horse is second season novice. For me, like something like that. I mean, you can go on these program or these podcasts and tip the odds on shot, but at even money, surely he's massive value because he's been there and he's done it. Because like punters need to realize, like it's all well and good horses showing form at other tracks, but when you're looking to gamble on horses at Cheltenham, you want to have them to be there and done it, because quite often than not, a lot of horses will not take to the occasion. Like they have to go there and know that the razzmatazz isn't going to boil them over, because a lot of these horses could run the race before the tapes go back. And I just think at even money, a horse like that, who's been there, he's done it, and he's a second season novice, stay in race. I think he's a massive price at that.
So just recapping this segment. So David, Galopin Deschamps for you?
Yeah, I think Galopin Deschamps win the Gold Cup. Just one other one I want to mention who I think I'll be very disappointed if she's beaten, should I say, Allegory Devassi in the Mare's Chase. It looks a match between Allegory Devassi and Impervious, and I think she's just a different species. She's massive. She's a gorgeous looking mare. She's the type of mare now I could see winning 3 or 4 Mare's Chases in a row. I just think she's different class. Allegory Devassi in the Mare's Chase.
And Rob, a dream to spare, did you say? A dream to share rather in the bumper?
A dream to share, Gordon, yeah. And I think, look, it'd be a magnificent story. Obviously, John Gleeson's going to be riding it. He's only 18. You know, it's the horses, obviously, as I said, was bought by JP recently off Brian Gleeson, who's would be well known and obviously on TV and stuff. So I just think it'd be an absolutely brilliant story and be a great way to end day 2.
And Brian, repeat yours, please.
Is it Gellard de Menil in the National Hunt Chase?
There you are. That's the lads there talking about an Irish banker, an Irish horse that they can't see being beat. And then just how dominant, starting with you for a change, Rob, how dominant do you think the Irish will be? Is the Prestbury Cup, is it already making its way back across to you guys?
Yeah, I mean, I think you look at this and you look at Willie Mullins and the ammunition that he has. Like, I mean, you could see him having more winners than last year. I think you could see him having 11 or 12 winners this year. You really could. He has that strong a team. Obviously, Henry's going to be there as well. Gordon's going to have a big team. I mean, I think you're probably looking at, what would you say? There's 28 races. I think you're maybe looking at 16, 17, something like that. It's the Irish.
Yeah. David, would you like to predict the score? Was it 18-10 last year or something like that?
18-10 last year. Yeah, it was. And it was 3-0, of course, wasn't it? After 3 races to the home team last year. I actually think they might do slightly better this year. My guess would be maybe 16-12. I just think Nicky's team going in there, like he's got Constitution Hill, so it's 1-0 already, basically. So you've one on the board. You've Constitution Hill, you've John Bond, Lucia. Like Hermes Allen has a massive chance in the Ballymore for Paul Nicholls. I think it could be a little bit closer than recent years. I'm going to go for 16-12, Gordon.
And finally, you, Mr. Hughes, how do you see it going? Are you going to predict
I think
the
they
score?
should just leave that. I just think they should leave that trophy in Ireland. There's no point in paying Ryanair to bring it across. I just think they should leave it there.
Yeah, and not just for this year. I think it could stay there for a year or two as well.
Well, you look at the Dublin Racing Festival and say the abundance of talent Willie Mullins has, and obviously Gordon Elliott's a big team, and Henry de Bromhead has a lot of nice horses. So I mean, years ago when the good horses used to be shipped to England, they're all staying in Ireland now, and you can tell.
Segment next up is the British banker, other than Constitution Hill. So Brian, you and me here, no pressure, away from Constitution Hill.
I mean, Gordon, just to put, I am actually Irish, so it me.
I know, but you're
just to clarify. Just to clarify.
Just to put that out there, I'll not be allowed home if.
You're at the moment. Let's call you.
Well, obviously,
let's call you
the British banker. The British banker, you look at like the Constitution Hill and John Bon on the first day, and you say Lucia looked very impressive in her couple of hurdle starts. But I mean, I wouldn't read into John Bon's underwhelming, not as fluent a performance, because Nicky Henderson will only have one day in mind with this horse, and again but apart from Constitution Hill, you could say he was a good winner of a Supreme, if there's no Constitution Hill. So I think, yeah, he's been there, he's done. I mean, obviously El Fabiolo for the Irish, but he's a lack of experience, hasn't he? So, I think John Bond for me would be the British banker on the first day.
If I had to take away Constitution Hill and maybe John Bond as well, I thought maybe Lucia and the mares. Novice hurdle on the Thursday. She's not done a whole lot wrong. And Nicky Henderson, I think he could have we know he'll have a good festival with the likes of John Bond, hopefully, in Constitution Hill. So away from the obvious, I see she's actually in the Supreme as well, but I gather she's 64 for the mares. I think she'll go for the mares. Looks the easier option. So away from Constitution Hill is the question we're asking. Brian and me, we've made a decision, and it's going to be Lucia for me. And on that same topic, David and Rob, away from bankers winning, Have you any memories of bankers that have sort of gone wrong for you, Rob?
Well, yeah, that was the one. As I said, I done that double a few years ago, and like they were both 1-4 or whatever it was. It was an extremely silly thing to do. Altior in the Arkle and Duvan in the champion chase, and it obviously all ended in absolute tears. So I learned my lesson the painful way that day. Let me tell you.
David, any tale of woe?
Oh, sure. My tale of woe was the same as everybody else's tale of woe. I'm in the tens of thousands that was waiting on any power for a nice little. I didn't do the 4-timer. I did the treble with Undaso and Faheen in the champion hurdle, and it was one of them. It was one of them days in Cheltenham. It was really bizarre to be there because it was almost like too easy, and I almost think that day sums up punting in general because you're going favourite, bang, 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 bang. And everything just went exactly the way everybody thought it was going to go. And coming down to the last, it's just like, right, what am I going to spend my money on tomorrow? And then it just comes all crashing down around you. And I think actually that day, I think I had a saver in the race just in case on Barry Geraghty rode a horse for Nicky Henderson. And I actually thought she was up passing the line. She was beaten short head in a finish by Glenn's Melody. So it was a double whammy for me, Gordon. But yeah, Annie Power, I'm with the rest of the world who was let down by that last hurdle.
Just on that, Gordon, actually, there's another one as well that was much more gutting. I had done an anti-post Lucky 15 the year of COVID, 4 Henry de Bromhead horses, and I was waiting on a Plutard in the Gold Cup and Manila Indo-Beta. I was waiting on it for near enough $6,000. I had the horse that won the champion chase. I had Honeysuckle. Put the kettle on Bob Ollinger, and yeah, that was devastating. Even more so devastating when it won the Gold Cup last year and I didn't back it.
Yeah, great stuff there from the lads. We're moving to another segment now. This is the taking on a Shorty. Which short price favourites can you see getting beat? So Brian, I'll start with you just for a change with Constitution Hill. We've got Delta Work. We've got Mighty Potter. Lucia, I've mentioned. I think she'll win. Lossy Mouth, a short price as well. Of those, which ones do you think are most vulnerable?
I suppose Delta Work, really. Obviously, he was a high-class horse, but, I mean, you could say the other day, the last day he ran, he'd have needed the run, but I don't know. He was a talented horse, but he's prone to throwing in an ordinary run. But and then I suppose you have to forgive Facel Vega a very underwhelming run at Leopardstown. So, you're probably one of them two, really, Gordon.
Two of them are trained, David, by Gordon Elliott. Two of them are trained by Nicky Henderson. Lossymouth, of course, the filly. She's the shorty for the Triumph Hurdle. So Delta Work is, as Brian's mentioned, very short for the cross country.
It's interesting. I did a Cheltenham Festival preview with David Casey the other night, who's Willie Mullins' assistant. He was very sweet on Blood Destiny rather than Lossymouth in the Triumph Hurdle. I thought that was really interesting. He fancied the second favourite from the stable to beat the favourite. Do you know who I'm against, Gordon? I'm against Energumene in the Champion Chase. I think Edward Stone will win it. I came out of the Clarence House. I know you can make excuses for Energumene, who can jump a lot better, and he was obviously much better in last year's Champion Chase. But I came out of that Clarence House saying to myself, Edward Stone is going to win the Champion Chase. He had to do an awful lot of running from the home turn to halfway up the running to get to Editor de Jeet. And I was interested to hear Alan King obviously say that he was lame after the race, because I think if he wasn't, he probably would have went on and won. And I actually think if he won by a short head rather than lost by a short head, you'd be talking about an even money favourite for the Champion Chase. Arkle winners have a terrific record in the Champion Chase coming back the next year. Even Put the Kettle On, who never won a race after the Champion Chase, did the double. I think Edward Stone at the moment is in a better place than Energumene. So Energumene will be my Bismarck for the festival.
I'm certainly on Edward Stone's side. And then the same question to you, Rob. I mean, Delta Work, I think he, of the five we've mentioned, is the sort of the dodgy one in the cross country.
Yeah, I don't know about that. I'd be happy enough with Delta Work. Now, the only thing is when he won last year, obviously it was that day that was a monsoon-esque sort of downpour of rain and the ground changed, and we obviously all know what happened to Tiger Roll. But I think I'd be happy enough with Delta Work. The one that I'd be against here is Mighty Potter. I think he's very, very short. He's at about 11-8. I know he obviously disappointed in the Supreme last year when he hit one early on. But I mean, if he's up against the likes of Sir Gerhard and Banbridge, I mean, I think I'd be taking him on at a price that short.
Yeah, they're all going to be pretty short, but I don't think anything's going to be shorter than Constitution Hill. Round about 1-3, Delta Work 11-10, Mighty Potter 11-8. I see David, Mighty Potter's in the Turners and the Brown Advisory, but the shorter price is about the former, the Turners on Thursday.
Yeah, definitely goes for the Turners. I was in Gordon Elliott yesterday morning. He has Mighty Potter for the Turners, Jerry Calam for the Brown Advisory. He's pretty sure that's the way they're going. So I'd be shocked if they didn't go that way, Gordon.
That's the Take On a Shorty segment then, and you heard what the lads had to say there. Right, this time we're moving on to an interesting segment. Looking forward to hear what they all say about this, Brian, Robin and David. Dark horses. So this is horses at a bigger price that you like in this race. So big priced horse in one of the grade ones, for example, a forgotten horse. Rob, have you got one up your sleeve?
Yeah, I don't know if it's definitely not a forgotten horse, but just looking at the Ryanair, obviously, look, Shishkin was absolutely fantastic the last time. Envoy Allen, I think I'd give him another chance in this. I mean, he won first time out down Royal. I see David shaking his head. I know I actually fancied him for when he ran at Kempton over Christmas, and obviously, look, he bombed out that day. But a lot of Henry's ran disappointingly at the time. But I mean, if he turns up in the Ryanair, I think he would have some sort of a chance each way, maybe.
Okay, David.
I'm trying to keep a straight face here, Gordon.
Let's see if Rob laughs at your suggestion then.
Look, Envoy Elen was a fantastic horse, but I just don't know how you can forgive him, Rob. I just think he lets you down so often. And I think he's just first time every season down Royal is going to be his day. But look, you could be right. Look, you're a shrewder judge than I am. My strongest fancy of the entire week, I'm giving away my banker here, is actually an English trained horse, Gordon, but he's double figures. I really like Walking on Air in the Pretemps final. I thought he bolted up at Exeter in a qualifier, and he only got £5 for it, which I thought was extraordinary. He's gone up from 133 to 138. He's owned by the Tabors, and I wouldn't be surprised if the final has been the plan for quite a while. He's only had 6 starts. He's unexposed. He's out of Walk in the Park, and Refinement, of course. Refinement was just beaten in the Mayor's Hurdle, the first year of it, by a horse, Donald McCain's White Oak. And I just think everything about him suggests that 3 miles is going to bring out the best of him. He's been brought along steadily. He's unexposed. I'd say he's probably 150 horse running a handicap off 138, and he's 10-1 for the Pretemps final. So that is my big one for the festival, Gordon. I'm hoping that can be one for the British in the Pretemps final on Thursday. It's Walking on Air.
Walking on Air. And Hughesy, have you any views on what we've just been discussing?
Yeah, I think looking at the prices for the Gold Cup, I think at 8-1, Absolute Hard looks a bit of a forgotten horse. Look, Galopin Deschamps is obviously the one everyone's talking about. He would have been a good winner last year, and he overjumped, and he looks like he's settling better, and he'll stay. But until he actually does it, and I mean, with not much rain around, as it was reported in the Racing Post this week, the forecast is quite dry. I think you could forgive Aputard his run. Obviously, they said he wasn't quite right, but you can always forgive a horse one ordinary run. And the ground was uncannily very, very quick that day at Haydock. I mean, I suppose it's probably me heart ruling me head, but if any team deserve a bit of luck for the way their year has gone, I'd love to see that horse winning for Henry and his team, because they've had an ordinary year now. And I think at 8-1, I mean, horses that run well in Gold Cups generally have a good record of coming back and doing it, at least for a few years anyways.
So Brian's talking about Absolute Tard in the Gold Cup. David mentioned Walking on Air in the Pretemps, and it's the Ryanair and Envoy Allen for Rob. And just on this section, guys, to finish up, biggest Grade 1 winner you've ever backed at Cheltenham? David, you? I've got to go back a long way to come up with mine, so you go first this time.
Mine it's 9 years ago now, actually. It was the bumper in 2014, Silver Concord for Robbie McNamara and Dermot Weld. I was on a 33s anti-post, and it was one of them where usually the closer a race gets, the less confident you get. But for some reason that day, as the races were going by, I was going, this is just going to win. It's going to win. So I was on a 33s, 25s, 20s, a little bit more at 16s. And it was one of those very rare occasions in life, Gordon, when he actually managed to do exactly what I thought he'd do, and he won. So it's 9 years ago, though, and that money is well spent.
What about your own best lift, Rob?
I actually had a very small couple of quid on Lebeck that year. I mean, it was Jack Hendy's first winner. Obviously, had a crazy background story, but was well tipped up that year. I remember Jamie Codd was very, very sweet on him on a preview night. I had a couple of quid on him. I think DJ might remember this better than me, but I'm pretty sure a few of the Irish lads in the press box put a couple of quid on once he jumped away and running as well.
Yeah, I was mad. There was a good few of them lining up beside me, and they all had their phones out like this. And here they were looking at the screen, looking at the screen, next thing he jumped off, and it was like in tandem, they all dived to the phone to back him because, like, he had obviously refused a couple of times on the way there, and he only actually qualified for the race because he basically refused to run the race. He set off maybe a hurdle behind everything one day at Navan, and he ended up like being tailed off. But he needs to actually finish a race to actually qualify for running the race because he refused. But he was an absolute headbanger. But he was a talented headbanger, Gordon.
Before we hear from Brian, my biggest, well, not biggest lift, but best memory of backing a winner at Cheltenham is a long time ago, 1999. Hughesy, what were you doing back then?
1999. Well, I would have been still in school, Gordon. I'm not as young as I look.
24 years ago, it was Mick Fitzgerald winning the Gold Cup on Seymour Business. I think they stuck headgear on him for the first time, and I was working for a paper in those days, not getting a lot of money. And I think he was about 16 or 18 to 1. I got a lot of plaudits for that. And won the Naps table in the Racing Post that year. And then by the following spring, I got the tin tack because I made a bad start to the flat season, and I was about minus 50 the next year. So Seymour Business winning the Gold Cup for me, an early big race winner, of course, for Paul Nicholls. Brian, memories of riding a surprise winner? Because obviously jockeys can't bet.
Well, I don't gamble, Gordon, but I mean, the memories of Cheltenham winners would have been in 2000. Not that I was riding, but the horse that won the Gold Cup that year looks like trouble. He was only bred 10 minutes up the road by the Real family. And I remember it was all the talk of the country that this horse had won the Gold Cup, and they had the half sister in the field. And like, I mean, at that time, I think it made £100,000 when, in a store sale, and it turned out to be absolutely useless, the half sister. But I remember that's my first big memory at Cheltenham, because it was a locally bred horse, everyone knew all about it. And and used to be driving up to my grandmother's house, and you'd see the horses running around the field, and the half sister to the Gold Cup winner was in the field. But yeah, that was my earliest memory of Cheltenham.
Great memories from the lads there in that particular segment. Right, moving on to another category then. We're calling it Dangerous Handicappers, a horse that you think some of the lads here, maybe myself, is well handicapped. We'll rattle through this as quick as we can. We'll focus on David and Rob for the first two parts. So we get this every year. Talk of the Irish handicap marks, David, when coming to Cheltenham. Too lenient or what? What's your thoughts?
Well, sure, obviously there have been over the years, especially in the last decade or so. I'd imagine they won't be so nicely treated this time, all right. There's a few of them that I'd imagine will get a fair whack. But look, it's a very hard job to try and equate form from Ireland to England, and I don't envy the handicapper that has to try and set them all up and do what he thinks is right. It's one of the trickiest jobs, and I'm sure Brian will agree. Like, it's not easy trying to collaborate all the form together. It's a tricky one. I personally would love to see, basically all the horses having the same rating in Ireland and England, and at least then in January and February what we're likely to be seeing in March. So it's going to be interesting to see what marks the Irish do get. But I'm sure there's a few that are going to be clobbered anyway, Gordon.
And whether it's, of course, in a handicap or whether it's a shorty in one of the graded races, don't forget at Novibet.ie, you get your money back as a free bet if your horse finishes second to the SP favourite at the Cheltenham Festival. There'll be extra places on offer every day as well. Same question to you, Rob, as I gave to David about the Irish handicaps. Are they, in your opinion, harsh or lenient?
Well, I sort of agree with Dave was saying there. It would make sense to have the same system in the two countries. Like, I mean, you're never going to keep everyone happy. We've seen it with the Grand National, that with Ted Walsh and things like that. You're never going to keep people happy with the marks that the horses are given. So, I mean, it's a different case on a horse-to-horse basis. Some horses will feel or some trainers will feel their horses have been harshly treated. Others will feel a bit lenient. But I think it's a very difficult job to do, to try and keep everyone happy. And there's always going to be people that are more happier than others, I suppose.
And David, I'm guessing you could probably give the horse you gave earlier on. We're talking about Irish horses that could be well treated this year. And I know you went for an English one, a Dream to Spare in the Attempts. Have you got an Irish one that maybe you think's slipping under the radar a wee bit?
Yeah, I have a few, Gordon, that I think are really interesting. There's one in the Boodles on the opening day that it was 33-1 earlier on in the week. Metamorpheus, it's called, trained by Paul Nolan. Ran in a race at Naas a couple of weeks ago that has produced the winner of the Boodles for 4 of the last 5 years. Now, he only finished 4th, but I thought he jumped well. There went no pace and it turned into a sprint. I think he'd be better suited to a faster run race, and he's a huge price, as I said. He's 33-1. So I think he's really interesting in the Boodles. A horse trained by Gordon Elliott called Imagine. Wherever he shows up, I think this is a really smart horse. He's going to be off maybe 138 or 139. If he goes for the Martin Pipe, a race that Gordon absolutely loves winning, obviously worked for Martin Pipe in the early days. I think Imagine is a kind of a classy Grade 2 horse that's going to be run off in a handicap off a mark in the 130s. It's a nice double figure price, around 14s or 16s for Martin Pipe. So I think he's interested, or if he runs in the Coral Cup either. And if he doesn't run the Coral Cup, HMSC horse, another Paul Nolan horse, who was a good horse at the flat. I thought he was good at Navan when he won last time, and he's got a touch of back class as well from the flat, so maybe him for the Coral Cup. So Metamorpheus, HMSC horse, and Imagine would be potentially my 3 Irish handicappers, Gordon.
And Rob, anything that's maybe got a pound or two in hand for you? The likes of the Attempts, the Fred Winter, maybe the Grand Annual?
Yeah, I'll give 2 here, Gordon. There's one, actually, this one's definitely not under the radar, but I think it's one that will win. I think Stumptown for Gavin Cromwell, it ran a couple of weeks ago, and I just loved the jump, and I thought he was an absolutely fantastic jumper. So I think he's either going to go for the Kim or the Ultimate. I think he's about 6-1, 6-7-1, but I think he will win. The other one, I was just looking through them earlier on, that sort of stood out at a big enough price. Now, I don't know, Dave might know a bit more about this than me, probably been up in Gordon's yesterday. Riviere Dietel, he's quite a big price for a couple of races. He hasn't been seen since November. He finished last of 4 at Carlisle, which doesn't read very well. But he was obviously sent off second favourite for the Arca last year, was finished 5th in the end. But I just have a feeling this could be the plan for a while for this horse. Obviously, the Moran Zone, they've never had a Cheltenham winner. And I would imagine that's very high on Gordon's list of things to achieve this year.
Well, you're after doing something very important there, Rob. You're after giving Riviere Dietel a sex change.
Oh, sorry,
she runs in the mare. She runs in the mare. She runs in the. She runs in the mare's chase. And very interesting, Rob. And it's interesting that you noted she schooled at Navan last week, or was a Fairy House? I think it was a Fairy House last week, and they've done little tweaks to her back, and they think they have her. They think they have her back right, Riviere Dietel. I'm not quite sure 2.5 miles on the new course in Cheltenham if she'll fully get home, but they definitely think they have her back right, and I wouldn't be surprised if Riviere Dietel did start a much shorter price is at the moment for the mare's chase. She's definitely a mare, Rob.
Slip of the tongue, Dave.
I'm saying nothing. I make that mistake quite a lot. I'm saying absolutely nothing. Brian, then from your perspective, anything from these shores, particularly up north, that's maybe gone there with a mark?
The only thing I will say, Gordon, with the handicaps, quite often than not, if it's the horses that, when you look at the graded novices in Ireland, it's the horses that are finishing 3rd, 4th, 5th, not beaten overly far, that the good horses won, and it's the 2nd and 3rd string of the big yards that ended up. And when it always looks wiser after the event. It was 4th to the horse that won the Supreme Novice, and it's come out and won the County Hurdle or whatever that may be. But the one thing I will say with the English handicapper, they are being a bit more realistic with horses, especially for the last season, probably since Cheltenham. You could win a novice on a horse and you'll think, oh, it'll get a high rating, and it gets a fairly sensible one. So I think that will bring the two closer together. And the English handicapper, I suppose, it would be Into Overdrive. I think he's near enough 8-1 joint favourite for the Ultima on the first day. Now that he is the sort of profile I think that would suit, like that has horses that have won that race before. He's still unexposed. He's improving. He was second to Lon Presse in the rehearsal, and he won the Roland Merrick, beating Sounds Russian, who's then come out and franked the form. Running up the backsides of the Grand National winner in the Many Clouds, and then Sound Russian's come out and been, so the form's quite strong. Sound Russian come out and he was second in the Cotswold Chase, and now he's going for the Gold Cup, and he's not the biggest price in the world for the Gold Cup. So on a line through all that, I think he could be one that could take a high rank. And then also in the Grand Annual, another Northern trained horse, Maalistic. He's not a bad horse. I rode him down there at the start of the year, and he boiled over in the beforehand, but he came back and he scoped bad. But he's won 2 decent handicap chases since, and then he ran up the backsides of Grenadine and a few others in the Game Spirit at Newbury on ground that I know would be far too quick for him. So he's a horse that he could be still a little bit ahead of the handicapper.
And just a quick fire question to you all to finish this segment. Rob, do you keep an eye on any particular trainer at Cheltenham for a handicap? Is there any sort of, you think, oh my goodness, yeah, I like that horse, it's trained by such and such?
Well, I mean, you can say that about the likes of Gordon Elliott, but I mean, he's going to have that many in the handicaps. It's very hard to sort of narrow it down to, you can't just back them all, do you know what I mean? But I think, yeah, look, Gordon will probably win a couple of the handicaps. Another one of his, I actually think just worth giving a mention to, is the Boss's Oscar. Was obviously second in the Pertemps a couple of years ago, and I think he's going to run in that race again this year. I would be interested in having a bet on him if that is the plan.
And David, have you got an Irish handicap specialist trainer, if you like?
Yeah, I'm going against him. The Irish specialist trainer is Charles Burns, who's got shoot first in the Pertemps final. He could be chucked in. Who knows? He won at the November meeting at Cheltenham and looked very good. I'm taking him on walking on air in the Pertemps final. But Charles, we've seen it time and time again with Charles, when he gets one ready for one of the handicaps at Cheltenham, he rarely misses.
And Brian, if you were getting a leg up for a trainer at Cheltenham,
I would ride any of Willie Mullins's, but even the 5th string, because they could come out and win too. Anything he runs will have a chance.
Yeah, again, lovely stuff there from Robin, from David, and from Brian. Right, on to the next segment then. It's how would you play the Champion Hurdle? Now, it's obviously dominated by Constitution Hill. How far will he win by? Who'll finish second to him? Is he the greatest we've ever seen? I would doubt that at this stage. He's unbeaten. Who will chase him home? Is it as simple, Rob, as Constitution Hill wins by, is it a dial the distance? Who's going to be second?
Yeah, I actually think there's a bet to be had in that, though, because I mean, I think I seen the other day he's with even money to win by 5 or more lengths. I think he's seen 7-2 for 10 or more lengths. He's won all his races by more than 10 lengths. I mean, you can bet on Stateman to chase him home if you want, but I think I'd rather be having a bet on 7-2 from to win by 10 or more lengths. I think that's a really good value bet. I just think he has a freak. Now, look, he's not. There's no way you can call him the greatest horse we've ever seen. He could be in a couple of years, but he's going to have to win a couple of champion hurdles or go chase to win an Arkle or a champion chase to be in that sort of discussion. But he definitely has the potential, obviously, to do that.
Yeah. Is it as simple as a clear round, David? Is it a battle for second place?
Oh, he's extraordinary, Gordon. I don't know if you've seen the piece of work he did in Kempton this morning. You can't read too much into pieces of work, but it was just really intriguing to see Nico settling him 5 or 6 lengths behind the 2 lead horses and then winning easily up the home straight. It's something. He's just something different. He just it's really simplifying it, and like Brian, who rides horses, will know this makes no sense at all. But the thing that baffles me every time he runs is he never ever looks tired. Ever looks tired. Like when he won the Supreme, it looked like he could have went around again. When he won the Fighting Fifth, it was the same. Same at Kempton at Christmas. He just never looks knackered. He never looks even remotely tired. Looks like he'd stay up all night. It's incredible. As regards a bet in the Champion Hurdle, I do think there is one in it. My up in the ante colleague Johnny Deneen doesn't fancy Vauban at all, but I think Vauban could finish second, and I think he'll definitely finish in the first 3. Willie Mullins was absolutely gobsmacked by how well he ran in the Madison Hurdle at Christmas. He thought he was way behind where he was in the race. He didn't really take the anticipated step forward in the Irish Champion Hurdle, but he clattered through the first hurdle there. I think you're going to see a different Vauban. He won the Triumph Hurdle there last year very impressively. I know it's hard for juveniles in their first season in open company, but to me, he was probably the most impressive Triumph Hurdle winner I've seen since Steffi Desai. So I think Vauban will finish in the first 3, and I wouldn't put anybody off maybe backing him without Constitution Hill, and he could just finish ahead of his stablemate, State Man.
And Brian, slightly different question for you to finish this segment on the Champion Hurdle. You were at Sandown, December 21. You were riding in the Henry VIII Novices Chase that day on Manila Drama. That was the day Constitution Hill won in his debut under rules. Can you remember much about it?
Yeah, I think there was plenty of talk about him. I mean, the story's well played out now that he wasn't showing a lot in his canters, and then I think when they got him fit enough and gave him actual serious piece of work, they realized what they had. But yeah, I think that there was plenty of whispers that day for him, and look, rightly so. I mean, he's taken every step forward that they've asked him to do, and look, he's been visually impressive in everything he's done. But just going with David is saying, I mean, he doesn't look tired, but there's no doubt when he's putting in running them huge time figures and the performances, he's having races, So look, he's trained by a master, and no doubt it'll be a great race between him and Stateman. I mean, like, Stateman would fall into the category, he'd be a better horse in a better race, because it looks to me, even after the race in Leopardstown, that Paul Townend's keen to make sure it's a good even test for him, which he will get in the champion hurdle. But look, visually on what Constitution Hill has done, he's going to look hard to beat.
Don't forget, we've got a general sign-up offer here on the Novibet.ie. You bet €10, you get £50 throughout Cheltenham with €50 throughout Cheltenham with Novibet.ie, and that includes, of course, that Constitution Hill race. The offer for money back is a free bet if your horse finishes second to the SP favourite at Cheltenham. That sounds very much the way to go. Right, just a couple of segments to conclude. We move on to the best amateur jockeys to follow this year. Brian, I'm going to start with you because you'll know these guys pretty well. We're talking Derek O'Connor, we're talking Jamie Codd, we're talking Patrick Mullins. Which one do you consider the best amongst the unpaid ranks?
Gordon, them three men you're after mentioning are amateur in name only. Believe me, they're not amateur jockeys. They're professionals riding in amateur races. They are three very good riders. I mean, like, I wouldn't have the audacity to say one is better than the other, because I mean, what them men have done year on year and riding for the big connections. I mean, look, they're three brilliant jockeys. And yeah, you just have to applaud them. I mean, but they're amateur in name only.
Yeah. Slightly different question to you, David. Any younger boys coming through, boys or girls coming through the ranks? Did someone tell me that young Ben Harvey's quite highly regarded across with you guys?
Yeah, he's after turning pro. Very, very good rider. Rides for John McConnell. Really talented. One fella that you didn't mention in that list that I'd have there would be Barry O'Neill. Seriously talented rider. He's been booked for Marlar Mission in the National Hunt Chase. Quality rider. I'd have him up there with the likes of Patrick, Derek, and Jamie. And as regards younger jockeys coming through, I do think Sam Ewing is probably the next big thing. He's only 18. He's exceptional. He's got a really good head on his shoulders. Speaks really well. And I was chatting to Peter Fahey about him the other day. And Peter was just glowing in praise for Sam. He's a son of Warren, of course. Rode Tiger Roll on the flat. Not too many people can say that. And I think if we're all still alive, Gordon, in about 5 years' time, I think we'll be talking about Sam Ewing as potentially leading rider at the festival. I think he's the real deal.
Can I just butt in there and just second that what he said about Sam Ewing? And he's a nice lad he is too.
Yeah, I remember that I was working the day it came out that he was riding Tiger Roll in a flat race in Navan. And it was a huge thing at the time because Tiger Roll obviously had won Grand Nationals and cross countries, and he was the most famous horse around at the moment. I remember ringing this 16-year-old expecting him to be absolutely petrified and shaking on the phone, and you'd swear I was talking to like a pensioner. He was so relaxed. He was like, yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. And he said all the right things. And I got off the phone that day and I said to my wife, I said, that guy is going to go far.
Yeah. And Rob, as a tipster or indeed a punter, in races where some of these guys that we've mentioned are riding against professionals, you wouldn't hesitate in tipping their horse or backing their horse, would you?
Well, no, as Brian said, Gordon, I mean, I think a lot of those lads that haven't been mentioned, like as their amateur name only, like, I mean, Patrick Mullins is as good as anyone out there. Just in terms of ones to look out for, Keane Quirk is obviously quite highly regarded. He could have a couple of rides over the course of the week. I think he'd 5 winners in 10 days there last month. He had a brilliant ride on a horse at Ferryhouse. He just got up late on to beat Davy Russell, who was riding a 4-9 shot. So he could be one just to work keeping an eye on. And obviously Michael O'Sullivan as well. He's going to have 2 very good rides in Marine National and a good land for Barry Connell. So he could be amongst the winners as well.
And that brings us to our final segment of the podcast with Novibet.ie. It's our best bets of the whole festival and Brian's charity bet, courtesy of Novibet.ie. €500 charity bet, Hughes. That's a lot of money for you, so we want you to think carefully. We'll give you final shout. So round up of our best bets. I'll start with you, Rob.
A dream to share for me, Gordon, as I said in the bumper. I think he's a great chance. Just one more that I didn't actually mention, who I'm really starting to come around. I know he's not going to have a sort of uncontested lead, but Gentleman to me in the champion chase, I think each way he's about 9-1. He obviously bet Edward Stone last year. I know Edward Stone ran at Cheltenham. That might have left a mark on him, but and he was very impressive at Leopardstown the last day. And I think he could run a big race at a decent enough price in the champion chase.
Okay, but his main pick, a dream to share.
A dream to share,
yeah. Bumper. Yeah. David, what would your best bet of the whole 4 days be?
Well, as I said, I think Walking on Air in the Thames final, I think he's got a massive chance. I still think there's a bit of juice in the price. There's a couple of others that I like. In the county hurdle, I like Pembroke for Harry and Dan Skelton. I think he's still well handicapped. As I said, I think Edward Stone will win the champion chase. And maybe, just maybe, if Imagine sneaked into maybe the Coral Cup, I think he's one of Gordon Elliott's better handicapped hurdlers. So Imagine in the Coral Cup. But my week will revolve around Walking on Air in the Thames final, Gordon.
And you boys can, we'll hear from Hughes in just a second. I mean, you boys can say I'm mad or not. One of my favourite races that's been very productive for me over the years is what's called the Boodles now. It used to be the Fred Winter, the Juvenile Handicap Hurdle. I've been following a race at Naas, where the winner of that race at Naas has done really well in this race. I'm talking the likes of Band of Outlaws, Brazil last year. This year, Sir Alan won that race at Naas, and I noticed he's quite a short price for the Boodles. I'm following a little bit of a system here, David, from that Naas race, which, as I say, the winner of which normally runs and goes very well in the Boodles.
Yeah, absolutely. For the last 5 years, Aramax won it as well. And in that race, the one that I kind of took out of it was Metamorpheus, who I mentioned earlier, who's a much bigger price than Sir Alan. But Sir Alan definitely has a big chance if he goes there, Gordon. You're on the mark there, I'd say.
There you are. I think he might be in the Triumph as well, but I would imagine they'll go for the handicap. So there we have it then. There's quite a few there from David, but he was talking up Walking on Air, still some juice in the price in the Potemps. A dream to share in the bumper for Rob. Now we've got Novibet.ie. Brian Hughes, his sponsor here. He's got €500 of their hard-earned cash. And we want a winner, Hughesy. Come on, you're
no
the man.
pressure, no pressure.
Pressure's for tires, gents. I think all in on Into Overdrive in the
Holy Jesus!
I think he with a line of form through the Gold Cup horses and L'Impresse and stuff. I think this horse is going to do it for the North. 8-1.
It would be a great story, that, wouldn't it? Mark Walford, the people that bred him.
Wendy Hamilton bred the jockey and bred the horse.
Yeah, and the colours were placed in a Gold Cup. Remember, many moons ago, Earl's Brig,
yeah, there you go.
Perel Novibet will be bankrupt if that wins. Be $5,000 they'll have to be paying out.
It'll be a case of Brian, we can't give you the same money this season.
Yeah.
Listen, Brian, and to Rob and to David, listen, stay safe, guys. Have a wonderful Cheltenham Festival. And as I say, best offers, as always, with Novibet.ie.